So I was anxious for like 3 months,
Mm-hmm.
and my anxiety gone worse and worse and worse
Yeah.
to the point where I was actually diagnosed with clinical anxiety.
Yeah.
So at that point, like I said, I had been feeling anxious as an emotion and not feeling other emotions for so long that I just didn't know how to just go back to the other emotion. So
Yeah.
I had to, like, if anxiety is this big, you have to bring it down to the normal amount so you have a room now to feel joy again. I'm so glad you're here. My name is Joselyne John. I'm a registered nurse. I'm a sleep science coach. I'm also the author of Sleep Tight, the #1 secret to achieving your dreams. I help high-performing individuals and busy professionals to improve sleep quality for a more productive and fulfilling life. And welcome very much indeed to today's Sleep Tight podcast. Today at Sleep Tight Podcast, I have an amazing guest. She's a dear friend of mine, Jessica. She's a fellow nurse like me, and she's been a nurse for a long time. I rely on you so much. You have so much knowledge in terms of working with you has been amazing. So I'm so excited to actually get to talk to you today because you're worth of knowledge, but you are also, you embody your knowledge. I've met so many people, and I'm also that person. I feel like that's what brought us together. The fact that we actually practice what we know. We do our best.
Yes.
Like
every day we show up.
So I'm so honored because you have worth of knowledge about anxiety, and from the perspective of taking care of other people with anxiety, being a nurse for like I was gonna say a decade now. So we are talking about how to manage anxiety to improve sleep quality, to also live a calmer and more fulfilling life. And so I'm so happy for the conversation we're going to have.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh my God, I'm so glad you're here.
I have had anxiety and I cope with it the best I can, and I'm sure we'll have a lot to talk about.
Yes. Thank you so much. I'm looking forward to untangling all those tools that have been helpful for you. And thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, we're going to talk about, in my opinion, how to live, cope with anxiety.
Yes.
How to manage it, how to sleep better, have a happier, fulfilled life.
And so then, let's dive right into it.
Yes.
We're talking about managing anxiety to improve sleep quality and to live peacefully and joyfully. I want to start just by defining anxiety.
Beautiful. To me, anxiety is one of the emotions that we are living with daily. And defining anxiety to me would be to, in my opinion, it's just a feeling that stays with you that is not necessarily reality. Does it make sense? What is anxiety for you?
Well, thank you for asking, because when I was experiencing anxiety, my definition then and my definition now is different. And now I'm thinking, should I define it from my perspective now or from the perspective when I really had it? So to me, anxiety, when I was actually experiencing it, it just felt like this uncontrollable overwhelm. Like I was constantly overwhelmed and it felt like nothing could help it. And the only thing that I felt could help was if I had certainty in my hand. So I think now when I look back and using my journey, I realize anxiety is an emotion because we actually do. And we had this conversation earlier, how we were talking about like there's good and bad anxiety, or there's like manageable anxiety and then there's unmanageable anxiety. And so then for me, now when I look at it, I think anxiety is this emotion that we need to get. It helps us, propel us, and then go on a date, you get a little anxious.
And then you over prepare.
And then you over prepare. So we need a little bit of it.
Yeah.
So I think anxiety is a normal emotion that we've been gifted with, but then it becomes disproportioned, and it's as if it's the only emotion you feel for a long time. I had that where, like, for a period of 3 months, I felt only anxious, and I was deprived of other good emotions. I think that's how I define anxiety now.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it overtakes everything.
Yes.
It can become a pit for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And then this helps us thinking about when we say, oh, I have anxiety, or I'm anxious, like the connotation, I think, has to be revised. It's not necessarily a bad thing to be anxious. It's okay to be anxious. And I think one of the problems why anxiety is becoming really hard to manage and cope with, it's because we label it, first of all, that it's really bad. Yeah.
We need to normalize anxiety.
Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay to be anxious.
And not everybody needs to be medicated because they live with anxiety.
Yes.
Anxiety can be your friend.
Anxiety, that is a good route we are turning into other good parts of this conversation.
Yeah.
What does it look like to make anxiety your friend? Because we want to normalize it, so when it becomes a friend, it becomes much more manageable, because we can almost be more mindful. Like, your friend, you know where your friend is, you know where your friend is eating, like you kind of have almost a rapport where what your friend is doing.
You get to know your friend.
Yeah. And one of the really, like, a hard part of anxiety is, like we said, it's uncontrollable. You feel like it's so overwhelming, so big, you don't know where it's coming from, you don't know where it's going. But then when you make it your friend, it changes the game. So how do you make anxiety your friend?
For me, at this time in my life, I'm sure it will change because we keep evolving. But anxiety, I got to know myself so that I got to know also my anxiety. So when it arises, I'm not scared of it. I'm not trying to chase it. I welcome it. I observe it. And then I identify, is it a good anxiety or a bad anxiety? Is this anxiety going to push me to do better and work on myself and achieve great things? Or is this anxiety is just in my imagination?
Yes.
Right? Because some of our anxiety comes from the fear of the future, the unknown, like you said.
Yeah.
So if I know where it's coming from, that and how I make it my friend will be, okay, I'm not going to fall into my avoidant patterns, because that's my personality. That's how I got to know myself.
Me too.
Yeah. So I want to run away. I want away from it, and I want away from the thing that is making me anxious.
Right.
So let's say, for example, it's a job.
Yes.
Then instead of falling into my patterns of avoidance and either not going for the job that I think I'm not good enough for, or quitting a job that I think, someone else could do better, well, I'm going to make the anxiety my friend, and I'm going to start doing my best.
Yes.
I'm going to start studying the things that I don't know. I'm going to ask for advice from people that, could have experience where I don't. And I'm going to welcome all the challenge instead of trying to be fearful and avoidant and hide under a rock.
Wow, that was beautifully said. I totally echo that. Yes. And so self-awareness and commitment to growth is really the beginning. It's the mindfulness to observe what's happening in your life.
Yes.
Yes. And the reason why anxiety takes over, it's because it's so hard to get out of that anxiety cycle and come back into the present moment and say, oh, what's going on? So the moment you make a decision to actually observe and be mindful, you already broke the cycle of anxiety. And we were talking about this with our friend Ethan, remember?
Exactly.
So now Ethan's contribution is coming in.
Exactly.
Yeah, he was talking about how it's really important to stop focusing on being anxious. I think part of making anxiety your friend is actually starting to make plans.
Yeah, take action.
Yeah, it's like you are making a decision to take action while the anxiety exists, and that already makes the anxiety smaller and smaller.
Yeah.
Now you're moving anxiety from like being this uncontrollable amount, like you said, bad anxiety, to this good anxiety, good amount that will propel you to go on that really nice date and be yourself.
Yeah.
And maybe go on a second date after that.
Because the anxiety, it can be, that you're going to ghost that person because you're like, I'm overwhelmed. I don't know what to wear.
Yes.
I don't feel at my best or pretty today.
Yes.
So I'm just going to avoid the whole situation and not go.
Yes.
And then you're missing on maybe the love of your life.
Yeah. Yeah. And so many other good things too. You mentioned something really important about falling into odd patterns, because anxiety, like we said, is an amplified emotion. It could be, for example, you could be frustrated. To imagine being frustrated for 3 months straight without feeling another emotion, it could also be just as bad. So anxiety is also being amplified.
Yeah.
And when you only feel one emotion and it's becoming bigger and bigger, it's easy to fall into bad patterns. And I want to elaborate on that. And when we look at actually the anxiety as an emotion, oftentimes anxiety is actually emerging as a result of the stress response. Because, imagine back in the day, you imagine all these like good looking hunter-gatherer people that go in to find some food, and then they run into some tiger, and they're so strong, so their bodies are producing this response, right?
The stress response.
The stress response.
For survival.
For survival.
Yeah.
So I just want to say, when we're having anxiety emerging, I want to make that connection for people that it's actually emerging from the stress response. And so then right now, when dealing with anxiety, we're actually operating from the survival brain. And the survival brain has a way of just making other people or other things or other people, other bad people or other things in our brains, such as trauma, surface. And it's easy for us to go back in odd patterns that we used to survive before.
Exactly.
Such as you and I, we get into avoidance patterns. I've been working to get away from that. Spend so much money in therapy to stop being an avoidant person.
Even the things I'm doing that I didn't think were avoidance, my therapist is like, oh no, that's avoidance.
Yeah.
Like, oh.
But it's okay. Like we said, self-awareness is really important. And so I wanted to make this connection to just highlight it for ourselves, that when we're going through a hard time, and we're operating from the survival brain is quick, it reacts, it wants to do things fast. But you know what it does while doing that? It's also bypassing the logical parts of the brain where we can be mindful and observe. And so then that's why this is part of making anxiety our friend, by observing and slowing down and looking in ourselves inside to say, oh, what's happening? We are already slowing the brain down and allowing the neural firing in the brain to now not just go do those shortcuts from survival brain to action, now to going to also the logical brain, the creative brain. Say, oh, what else can I do to actually manage the situation instead of just staying constantly in the anxious thoughts. I wanted to highlight that for everyone as well.
And it's a long process. I remember feeling exhausted when I started the journey of feeling better. I was in my 20s and I was making all the changes. I was, exercising, doing yoga, therapy, reading the books, And I was like, I remember coming back from a run in my early 30s and being like, why am I still not happy?
Yeah.
You know, and now I realize you're creating new pathways in your brain.
Amen to that.
And it's going to take time. And
Yes.
it's going to be exhausting at times. And you're
Yes.
going to want to give up. But what else are you going to do?
Yes.
You know?
And what do you think would be the first step in actually starting that journey, knowing that finding ways and gathering tools to manage anxiety is a lifelong journey?
Yeah.
We don't want anxiety to go away completely anyway. We want to be able to manage it from being overwhelming to actually the good and the little bit of anxiety that drives us.
Yeah.
We talked about making anxiety your friend.
Yeah.
But what other steps do you think making anxiety our friend is the first step? Like, what have you found really helpful in terms of like the top, what would you say are like the top tools or top techniques that helped you on this journey?
I think the hardest, the longest, but the most efficient journey in overcoming anxiety was to start paying attention to my thoughts.
Okay.
So in a way, it's meditation.
Yes.
But throughout the entire day, not just when you sit for 5 or 10 minutes and you look at your thoughts, you slow them down and you try to quiet them. But throughout the day, to just pay attention to what I was thinking. Was I fearful of everything? Was I leading my life with love? And that was really life-changing to hear those words. And again, sometimes frustrating because once you become aware of your thinking, you're like, that's what I've been living with? This is the gray cloud that has been following me.
So that's where self-compassion comes in.
Yes.
When you're like, okay, well, my thoughts are really ugly, but I forgive myself.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to observe and take the right action.
Yeah.
So mindfulness and meditation.
Yeah.
And actually in my book, Sleep Tight, the #1 secret to achieving your dreams, I talk about mindfulness as a thought security check.
Okay.
Like being mindful is like an ability to actually check. It's like imagine your mind having a security check section.
Yeah.
That's mindfulness for you. Because you say, okay, I see that thought, but is it true? If that thought is true, what do I want to do with it? If it's not true, what do I want to do with that? The same thing with emotion.
Yeah.
What emotion am I feeling? Is it a happy emotion? Great. How long do I want to stay in that emotion?
Yeah.
Is it uncomfortable emotion? Okay, I see that. But how long do I want to stay in it? Because all emotions are welcome.
Exactly.
All thoughts are welcome because our brain is generating these things. But we are actually in control of what happens, of actually what we're going to take our actions on.
Yeah. And I see it on your wall here. It says, what is the worst that can happen?
Yeah, what's the worst that can happen?
So if your thought is true and it's giving you anxiety, well, to take it power from it, to take out the power of it, you think, what's the worst that can happen? And most of the time, the worst is not even that bad.
Exactly.
You will survive.
And you just highlighted what I was thinking actually when you were saying that. I listened to Jordan Peterson recently.
Yeah.
He talks about these topics as well. And he was talking about when you name anxiety, you break it down. That is like the best way to deal with it. Because one of the things that happened to me when I was anxious, it just felt like too big. But once I actually looked at it, what am I anxious about? So when you start asking those questions, like, what's the worst that can happen? You are already breaking it down. And the more you break it down, it becomes, it's not that big. It's just that you think that it's big.
Yeah.
Once you can name it. So part of that, I think mindfulness and meditation is observing your thoughts. Is just name it. Write it down. What are you anxious about? And what's the worst that can happen?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
To me, journaling has been an interesting journey because it just doesn't come naturally. I have all those thoughts and I get better, and then it's a wave, right? You get good, you get bad, you get better, you know, and I just ride this wave without taking notes. And I recently started more, you know, frequently being part of my journey. But yeah, I feel like if you write it down, you're right, you'll have tools to go back to.
Yes.
But also if you stop your thinking and you're like, okay, I'm anxious, or this is a negative thought that is not happening, it's just from fear, and you just bring self-awareness to it and you stop, and then you do something for yourself.
Yes.
Self-care.
Yes. Speaking of self-care, one of the things I noticed when I was really anxious, because anxiety is being that constant emotion you've been feeling for so long, it has taken you away from self-care, from feeling other emotions that are really good. So self-care is so important because you have to literally relearn how to feel the other good emotions, because you haven't felt those emotions for so long, because now you've been constantly feeling anxious. So you need to allow that space for self-care. And how do you actually make that turn? Right? Like you've been anxious, you haven't been taking care of yourself. Now you're making that decision. If someone is listening right now and they're like, I'm really anxious, but anxiety is also constantly worrying about the future. So technically they're kind of living in the future, right? So how do you turn from like, oh, I need to go back to the present? Like, what's the first thing? Because self-care now has become a really big thing where people talk about self-care. People do all kinds of things for self-care. But so how do you actually get started back to self-care?
For me, what I did is I tried a bunch of different stuff. And when I felt good about something, then I kept it in my life. I'm like, okay, going up for a hike is for me. You can hate it. I realize that not everybody's gonna like going on a hike and sweat and being in the middle of nowhere. But I researched it. I looked and I looked up to other people that had been through the journey. And some people are just better at self-care, or they come from more comfortable life, and they know what they like. So for me, I looked at everybody, and I looked online, I did research, and it was as basic as that. I was like, oh, this person likes reading in a comfortable chair with a candle and a warm tea. Okay, well, I'll try that. If it doesn't spark a fire, then I've tried it. It doesn't really, it's not for me. And then I move on. When I sit by a lake, or if I walk my dog, does that bring me joy? Then that, if it brings you joy, it's self-care.
Exactly. If it brings you joy, it's self-care. And actually, one of the things I did, so I was anxious for like 3 months, and my anxiety got worse and worse and worse, to the point where I was actually diagnosed with clinical anxiety. So at that point, like I said, I had been feeling anxious as an emotion and not feeling other emotions for so long that I just didn't know how to just go back to the other emotion. So I had to, like, if anxiety is this big, you have to bring it down to the normal amount, so you have a room now to feel joy again. And what I did, you nail it down. Find what brings you joy, because I actually I wrote a list of the things that I like to do, what brings me joy, because I had forgotten. Because the anxiety has just consumed my life. And it's funny because the first thing that I wrote was, guess what?
I don't know.
Can you guess? No.
Yes,
Talking.
I think you mentioned that to me.
So I was like, how is the first thing that brings me joy talking? Like, and I was thinking, seriously, Joselyne? Didn't you? How about dancing? Like, you love running. Those things also came to be on the list. And literally, I just started doing those things that was on my list. Remember, anxious thoughts train you to believe that you can live in your brain, in your mind. So you live in your in your mind for so long disconnected from the body.
Absolutely.
So when you actually write things down and say, I love talking, I love running, you are now actually turning from the future back to the present, going from just being in the mind back to the body. And now you are having this mind, body, and soul connection right in the present moment. And you just start to see life, and you stop to smell the flowers you passed by because you didn't notice them. You were so anxious about the future.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, I think a good parallel to that as well is that, well, first of all, you already knew yourself, which is beautiful.
Yes, I did.
Right?
Yeah.
Because when I started my journey, I don't think I knew myself. I had been distracting myself so much from my body and myself that I had no idea what brought me joy. So you started with like a lot of tools, you know, and that's beautiful. And I think what I want to say is that the journey cannot start until you have some love for yourself.
Amen.
Because if you don't love yourself, you won't respect the self-care that you're doing for yourself.
That's true.
It doesn't matter because you don't think you care or matter enough to do all this self-care.
Yes.
So I think the root of all of this work you're going to do is first,
yes,
you got to fall in love with yourself.
Amen to that.
Yeah.
Amen to that. So self-love is a key ingredient in managing anxiety so we can live this life joyfully and peacefully.
Exactly.
How does someone go about loving themselves? Okay, self-love is just one of those things. Like, give yourself permission. People say that, but they don't give you like a menu. Like, so how do I love myself?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure a lot of people out there don't know how to love themselves. Yeah. I did not know how. So I think it would be good for us to just give some...
I can tell you where it started for me. Well, first I recognized that I wasn't in love with myself.
Yeah.
And then I was at a yoga class. And the teacher at the end said, hold your knees close to your chest. Yeah. Give yourself a hug and tell yourself you love yourself. Say, I love you.
Actually, can we just pause right now?
Yeah.
And let's take that and give it to people and then let them do it. Can you? Because this was where it started for you. Can you tell people to do this at home? Okay. So what are we doing?
Yeah.
Well,
we were laying on the floor.
Oh, anyway, like a sitting version or whatever people are.
You can lay on the floor.
Okay.
For the full experience.
So this is the beginning of loving yourself so you can better manage your anxiety, sleep better, have a good life. If you can, let's start here.
Okay. So I close your eyes.
Okay.
And feel your heart.
Okay.
Be present with your heart.
Great.
Now take your arms and grab yourself. If you're on the floor, grab your knees and hold yourself as hard as you can and tell yourself, I love you.
I love you. Wow.
And I think that for me, I was saying, I love you to my inner child that has grown into this body today. And it just things sparked up in my brain. I felt the activity. Yeah. And it was the beginning.
This is so beautiful. And I really appreciate that you shared that. Because I always wonder, what is the beginning? Where does it start? And I feel like I felt it when I hugged myself. And I really hope that people are feeling this. That's the beginning. Because self-love is showing up for yourself. And that inner child aspect of it, really bring it home. Recently, my therapist has started asking me to talk to my inner child. And to get my inner child to talk to me. Yeah. It makes such a huge difference. Because you are actually seeing you for the very pure person that you are. Absolutely. When you start addressing things, your inner self, your inner child.
Yeah, and if a child makes a mistake, it's okay.
It's fine.
You're learning. That's what you would tell a child. So if you can turn that towards yourself, it's a beautiful tool.
Yeah. You remember what you actually told me this? You said if you make a mistake,
Yeah.
maybe you're being anxious, you know, go, oh, my boss or this person will be mad. You can just tell them, well, I'm not. Well, maybe it was that you or my friend Zainab. If she's watching, she knows it's my friend Zainab. She said that her therapist said that you just say, well, I'm not well practiced in that area yet.
Yes.
Yes. I'm not well practiced.
There's room for growth everywhere.
Yes. And I think self-love is saying I'm good enough where I am, but I honor myself and I acknowledge how far I can go, so that you are not going anywhere as an escape from where you are.
Yeah.
Yes. Wow, this has been really great. And I really want to touch on the connection to how all this connects to sleep. And I want to break it down simply. We know that everybody knows that when we have anxious thoughts, it's hard to sleep for so many reasons. We won't get into that. Just so many pathways why. Including it's triggering your stress response. So sleep being controlled by the brain. And I said in my book that sleep is a present activity because the brain is actually shutting down all the external stimuli so that it can focus on the internal work of running the sleep cycle. So it's something that's happening in the present. Now, when we are anxious, unfortunately, we are activating our brain and it's loud, it's not calm. The brain is not calm, and now that energy that was supposed to be used for the sleep cycle is now being used to run these like circles of thoughts. What happens? It doesn't
all
work.
those scenarios.
Yeah. So what I want to do is to look at like what happens. Like you are anxious. Like you mentioned a really important part earlier in the conversation that it's observing your thoughts throughout the day.
Yes.
No waiting when it's time to sleep and you're like, oh my god, I'm anxious about that, but that time the anxiety is like this much. But I mean, for someone who is actually going through like a real clinical anxiety like I was, because I recently needed help, at that time the anxiety has magnified for many months. That is one person, and then there's another person who is just dealing with day-to-day anxiety and has accumulated within a day. It's a lot. Either way, for all those people, I think what you said would really help to make anxiety their friend throughout the day, to make the mindfulness and observing thoughts part of their daily practice, so that by the time it's time to sleep, you have already done so much great work.
Yeah, some of the process that needed to happen is actually happening throughout the day, not when you're trying to sleep.
Yes, and I really love what you talked about regarding mindfulness and asking what's the worst that can happen, because one thing that really helped me like jump from like anxiety to finally feeling better was cognitive behavioral therapy. And I recently just took a course just so I can learn and heal myself. And there's a lot of questions in there, and when you ask yourself what's the worst that can happen, you ask that as many times as you need to. If you say what's the worst that can happen first time, and then it feels like you're not satisfied, your brain is not satisfied, because your brain will be like, oh, that's too big, and then you ask again, what's the worst that can happen? You keep going. You can ask what's the worst that can happen maybe 7 times. I promise you, by the time you get to like five times or 6, you will start to see how trivial the issue is. Yes,
exactly.
And so I think if we can use the tools, it's all about practicing what we know, isn't it?
Exactly.
If we can really commit and make that choice, which is what Ethan was saying. Ethan is in this conversation. He's here. Thank you, Ethan, for your contribution. He said that anxiety management is also a choice to choose to shift to a better thought. Like you said earlier, you cannot have a positive life with negative thoughts.
Yeah.
I remember the quote, right? Okay.
Yes.
So I think making that choice and making a choice, it starts with practicing what you already know and then seeking help for the things that you don't know. Like you said, you looked up to other people to see what self-care would work. You're like, oh, they do this, let me try it and see what happens. Try it. You are right now practicing journaling. I think I love journaling, but I don't do it as often as I would love to because it's always really helpful to journal.
Yes.
And so I just want to encourage people out there that you actually have so much power. Like people have so much power within them. Like it's all about like starting to do what you already know and trusting that you are guided and staying connected with that inner child. Your inner child is probably saying, you can do this. Like,
and calm down. You don't have to be perfect.
You don't have to be perfect. Everything is going to be fine. And so then I think while anxiety can be detrimental for sleep, we have so much power to really bring calm through mindfulness, through self-care, through journaling, observing our thoughts. Self-love is a big part of that as well.
And if you're not sleeping, then to me, it's an alarm.
Yeah.
You're like, okay,
yeah,
I can't sleep. My thoughts are racing. That's my first alarm.
Yes.
What can I change? What is in my power right now that I can change or improve so that eventually you'll sleep better?
Exactly. And when you are managing anxiety and you are on the process of actually managing anxiety to start to sleep better, I highly recommend having a bedtime routine. Because the thing is, anxiety makes it so that every exposure, everybody who talks to you, you think it's something bad. Like when I was anxious, my friend would text me. She'll be like, hey, how have you been? And I'd be, just a normal question would trigger my anxiety. So what I highly recommend when dealing with anxiety is having, in addition to having that morning routine, basically I highly recommend these 3 things are going to really help. Is like wake up in the morning and welcome calm in the morning.
Set your intentions for the day.
Set your intention for the day.
Absolutely.
Take time to observe your thoughts. Don't rush to the cell phone. Don't rush to call someone. Give yourself that moment to really check in and observe your thoughts. And in my book, I recommend simply taking time to make your bed. It can be a good mindful activity because you are focused on folding. Like that slows your brain down a little bit. Yeah.
Everything can become a meditation. When you're doing the dishes, when you're making your bed, if you're sweeping the floor, everything can be a meditation because our lives can be busy.
Yes.
And we don't always allow ourselves to take 10, 15 minutes and meditate in the morning.
Yeah.
I know I don't. So I try to bring myself back into my body and pay attention to everything I'm doing. And that's my meditation. So if I'm making a lunch for my baby.
Yay.
Well, while I'm cutting his little strawberries, while I'm present in that moment, I'll notice the color, the texture on my finger, the water on my hands when I'm washing his fruits. And that becomes my meditation because he wakes me up too early. I don't want to, get late, like arrive late at work, which I always do.
Forgiven.
And I don't want to be stressed about it.
Exactly.
So my choice is that, I chose a job that if I'm, between 5 minutes and 30 minutes late, it doesn't affect anybody. Like no one is waiting for me to show up.
Amen. So part of those choices is like making choices that will make you less anxious and
align your life.
Alignment is another tool we just pulled out right now. Alignment is really helpful for managing anxiety.
I switched job 3 times until I found the perfect one.
Amen.
And it wasn't avoidance. I was really paying attention.
Yes.
I was like, I'm going to find a good fit for myself.
Yes.
And for my life and for my new life as a mother.
Yes.
And without anxiety, I quit jobs that were secure with a lot of hours because it wasn't aligning with my life and the choices I wanted to make for myself.
Exactly.
So anxiety, like you said, like when we're 3 months anxious, if you look back and you remember how it all started.
Yeah. What's the root cause?
Yeah. How long did you allow yourself to live in disalignment?
Yes.
And for the anxiety to become like a snowball and take proportion that were out of control.
Yeah.
So really, is to stop and say, this is not working for me. What can I change? We don't have to all set fires to our lives and leave our husbands and, quit our jobs. But little steps that that there's light at the end of this. Yeah.
Oh my God. You are speaking to me right now because what you just described, that's exactly what happened to me. Choice and alignment.
Yeah.
And this connects back to what we're talking about, what our survival brains make us do sometimes. Not make us do, but sometimes we are operating from the survival brain for so long. And then we end up in situations like that where you are not happy. Like you said, when you came back from that run, you're like, what? Why am I not happy? I asked myself the same question.
Yeah.
I was like, why have I been anxious for 3 months?
Yeah.
Working on this job, like crying every day in my car and like having sleepless nights. And it's actually my choice because nobody's forcing me to come to work.
No.
And I was like, why?
Yeah.
It starts with that question because like trauma-informed care in nursing often like when we do those motivation interviews we don't like to ask why often but then I feel like the why question is a question that is so easy to ask towards ourselves. Everybody should be asking themselves why. And I feel like in order to, because alignment is so beautiful when you finally feel it.
Yeah.
Or when you finally know what's in alignment.
Yeah.
This is an alignment. We're here talking and it's an alignment.
Yeah.
When you don't have alignment, it can cause a lot of problems. So that what you spoke about right now, it really like you were describing me and I just wanted to give it because in order for people who don't have alignment, I believe the first step in having alignment is self-inventory, which goes back to self-awareness, but also accountability. Like without accountability, it's hard to get to alignment because if we keep blaming other people, I blame the healthcare system for my anxiety. I was like, the healthcare system is so messed up. Every nurse has anxiety.
Exactly.
But that doesn't help you. That it didn't help me to blame other people.
No.
It was not until I actually took accountability. I looked at my situation and I said, I'm going to spend as much time as I need until I figure out why the hell I actually neglected my health for like 3 months. Because if I don't find out why, I'm going to do it again. And I don't want to live like this.
Yeah.
So self-inventory and being accountable, looking at because I mean like bad things happen. Even if other people have ruined their lives, and it could be like 70%.
Yeah, nobody can ruin our life, but someone can be very impactful in a negative way. Absolutely. You know how much I know that.
I know. But also I'm actually advocating for some people out there who feel like that.
Oh,
some
absolutely.
people genuinely feel like someone ruined my life. No, so I'm just saying okay, we are all validated. I totally agree with you, by the way. Yeah. We are all validated. We are all validated. But to find alignment, the accountability lies in saying, I'm going to look at my part in it. Yeah. No matter what percentage. Yeah. I'm going to look at it honestly and just focus on that and untangle all the parts that I can change. That's what I did.
But also see yourself as a child. In those eyes of a caring, nurturing,
yes,
how you would accompany a child that has made a mistake.
Yes,
because we all make them, it can feel like we have ruined our life. Because if you turn it towards yourself, you're gonna say, oh my God, this person didn't ruin my life. I let them ruin my life.
Yes.
I ruined my life.
Oh, that's true. The self-blame can really come quick.
Yeah.
I really like the inner child dialogue as the best tool, in my opinion, to bring about compassion. Because Kristen Neff, for example, the author of SelfCompassion, she talks about self-compassion having like 3 parts, like mindfulness, kindness, and humanness. Meaning whatever's happening to you, it's happening to other people in the world too. But you have to be very kind to yourself, but you also need to be mindful, which is what we've been talking about. But I think having that interaction with yourself as an inner child, I feel like that is really effective. Yeah. Because like I said, it's my new practice since my therapist has been getting me into this. Once I did that, I actually see more compassion within myself. So that's really helpful.
Yeah, because as a grown woman, we're going to say, I should have known better.
But also, what you should say to that is, like as a self-dialogue, your inner child would say, but this is your first life.
Exactly.
You didn't know. It's still your first life. You're still going through this.
Better at this.
It's okay.
Absolutely. When I talk to my inner child, I have so much more compassion. I'm so much more patient with myself. And the mistakes I make, I still make them. I'm still, I still have good and bad days. And I remember telling you a couple of weeks ago, I am not sleeping. And I had a professional with me. And I knew exactly what I had to do and what I had to address. And it didn't go on forever, but it's waves. Some days I'm on top of things and I'm paying attention, and some days I get busy.
And that's okay.
And I'm racing. But when I look at it, my inner child says, oops, you've been running.
Hey,
slow
what's
down.
up?
I'm here.
Hi.
Slow down, take a deep breath. And it's going to be okay.
It's going to be okay. Wow, this is so good because it's so amazing. Like the conversation with the inner child is so helpful for self-love and self-compassion. And I'm in the process. My therapist recommended writing a letter to my inner child. Or my inner child writing me a letter. So I'm going to be doing that soon. That's going to be good. Beautiful. So we just went over all these things people can do during the day to manage anxiety. But I also, like I said, also please have a bedtime routine where you completely let go of the day. And you don't need to be introducing new thoughts to your brain before going to bed, especially when you already know that those anxiety, connections are activated. Because anything you're going to be doing later on, it might make you anxious. So I think it's good to just have that bedtime routine. And I like to say, make it mind, body, soul. If you can do one thing for your mind, meditation, for example, and do one thing for your body, whether it's like doing a facial mask or whatever you like to do. Like I said, people have different preferences. And then one thing for your soul, like if you're really angry at somebody, like just allow your soul to be in peace. It doesn't, because often people, I've seen most people are copying celebrities. Oh, this celebrity has this morning routine. This celebrity has this evening routine. I want to also follow that. I'm here to let everybody know, please stop copying other people's morning and evening routine. The best morning and evening routine to help you rejuvenate deeply and wake up with a joyful smile on your face is the routine that really is centered around your needs. And you just focus on the mind, body, soul connection and look at your day. Or in the morning, you look at yourself like, what do I need today? What's my intention? At the end of the day, you look at your day and say, wow, what did I go through today? What do I need? I ran 10K. Maybe I need a massage. You can't copy someone's routine. So take time to really have that special moment with yourself to manage and bring calm into your life in the morning and the evening. I feel once people do that, it can make a tremendous impact on their sleep quality.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So get to know yourself.
Yes.
And what you like.
Yeah. Oh my goodness, it's been amazing.
Thank you so much.
Is there any final thoughts? Like say, like I feel like we've gone over a lot of the tools that helped us cope with anxiety. And knowing you, we're still using these tools right now.
Yeah.
We are not perfect, and anxiety is something we welcome. You know.
Nobody likes it.
Yeah,
but
we all have it. Being a new author, I had a little bit of anxiety towards my end of my book publication. There's a lot of things going on.
Yeah.
But it's just pulling out those tools again and say, hey, I'm experiencing this, and what tools helped me in the past? What tools can I use? What's working? It's just that ongoing self-observing journey.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Those are great final thoughts.
Yes. Thank you all for watching. Thank you for coming. Oh my god. Oh, thank you so much. You've been such I'm so blessed. Oh my god, this was so good.
Please bring me back.
Yes, you're gonna come back.
I want to talk about all.
Oh my god. Yes, you're gonna be a repeating guest.